Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas and welcome to Learning Game Development. This time we're going to take a look at some UI overlay. Don't forget, click subscribe button and click on the bell icon as well to stay up to date with everything I upload to my channel on video game development. There's always loads to see, loads to learn and loads to do. So UI is basically a way of overlaying something on top of your screen, and the UI is commonly known as a HUD or a GUI or anything like that. It's basically a user interface. So that can be some text, it can be imagery, it can be buttons that you click, it can be anything like that. And essentially in Unity that all comes down to containing these things inside something called a canvas. So if we were to go to Game Object, go to UI, and let's start with text. You'll notice that a couple of things do appear here. We have the canvas, the text, and the event system. We don't need to worry too much about the event system at this stage in learning and development. It's more the canvas and what's contained inside the canvas that is what we want to focus on. So if we double click on this text right here, it will zoom us out and we can pan around and we can see what exactly is going on here. You can see in the middle of our screen, it just says new text. So if we click on game up here, we can see middle of our screen, it says new text. And this is where we can change it. We can change this to say whatever you want. We can change the font if we want to. Again, this comes down to assets that you've imported. You could bring in something called fonts and you can attach them right here, change how it looks. Obviously, we can change the style, the size, let's change it to 50 and make it disappear. I'll explain why momentarily. And we can also change the color. So let's just change it to white. Now, although this text object, in all sense of the word, has Jimmy in the text, it's not on screen anymore. And that's because basically the box is too small for it to fit in. So we need to go onto the rect tool. And as I said, it's here, or in older versions, it might be up here. And you just need to expand that. And if we go back to game view, we can see it says Jimmy once again. So we can move that around our screen wherever we want. That's all good and well. And this is now part of the UI. Now, there is one vital thing that I always like to try and cover when it comes to UI, and that's scaling the size. So obviously, different screens are different size. People play in different resolutions. We have different screens for different platforms. So a phone is going to be much different than playing on a PS5 or something like that. So on the canvas itself, depending on what you want to aim for, I've always found it necessary to play around with the canvas scaler. And the canvas scaler allows you to basically automatically adjust all of your UI to whatever screen size the person is playing on. So if we change it to scale with screen size, we can then set a default resolution. And obviously in this day and age, HD is the minimum resolution that people should be playing in, 1080. People might be in 4K, or you might even want to aim for 8K. So you would put that resolution in here. So for example, if we were just doing 1080p, we'd go 1920, 1080, and then we'd match the width and the height perfectly in the middle. So it's 0 for width and 1 for height. So I always like to have 0.5 to match it perfectly. So to fully illustrate how this actually affects the screen itself, I'll show you a little later on. But for now, let's add in a couple of other things. So let's go to Game Object once again, UI, and let's add in a button. Now, a button can be used for different things. I'm not going to show you how to code a button in this video. It is, again, something I've got on my channel. Extensive tutorials on how you can code a button to do various things. But essentially, the button itself is a way of, maybe it could be start game or load game, but it is a physical button that you can click. And if I click it, you can see it changing. There are settings that you can play around with on that button. I suggest playing around with them, changing what you can. Don't worry about doing too much to it, about changing things or accidentally breaking things. You can't really break these things at all. It's something for you to work with, test, play around with. Other things you can do, you can have some UI which has some, we can have an input field, drop down, we can have raw images, and obviously that raw image could be an image of a bullet to represent some ammo, and you could have it next to some text that says 1 of 6 left in your clip or something like that. And all of this represents all UI that you can have on the screen. So when it comes to UI, I think it's very important because it always gives the player an idea of what's going on. You don't want too much AI cluttering the screen, but you need to have the right amount on the screen. You know, you could look at this and also think, well, I know, why don't we go for a letterbox view? So you could go to Game Object, go to UI, go to Raw Image again, and then you would need to anchor this. And what I mean by anchor is it sets that particular UI section somewhere on the screen. So we could set it at the top and stretch it all the way across. So it would be this anchor position here. Then all we need to do is just make sure we place it in the correct way. So place it here and then drag it all the way across. And let's change the color to black. And then we could duplicate that particular asset and then set the anchoring down the bottom. And all this does is it ensures that it always appears in the correct part of the screen whenever you have the UI on the screen. So if we go to the game view now, we can see there is our letterbox view. All good. So remember earlier when I said about changing the screen size and scaling the canvas? Well, let's put that into test now so we can see. If we do that, yep, although we can see it go a bit funny there, it instantly snaps. So what's happening here is, depending on the screen size, yes, I know, I'll explain that in just a second, but it instantly snaps the size to the screen itself so we can physically see what is happening. So it always ends up in the correct position. So the reason it doesn't fully do it, it doesn't scale whenever we move like that, is because those items are static in the engine until we actually set it so, just like we have done there. Because you're not likely to, or rather the user isn't likely to change those sizes inside the game itself. So like if they're playing on Xbox or something, they're not going to change the screen size like that. So you don't need to worry about how that looks in the engine itself. When it comes to actually playing the game on whatever platform, that it's not really an error, but that feature disappears. To put that into perspective again with changing it back to constant pixel size, if we press play and have a look how it looks now, that is how it would look, which looks a bit silly. And if we pull that out and change that, you can see that it just doesn't fit. If someone's playing this game on a screen that size, it just looks a bit silly as opposed to, you know, having it a larger size. So that's why I always like to have that canvas scaling with the screen size. And obviously, if, like I say, if you want to aim for 4K resolution, you just do the 4K there and always set it to matching width and height. Now, there are loads of other things that you can add to the UI. You can have panels, you can have input fields like I say, scroll bars, all kinds of stuff. You can also use things like Text Mesh Pro. That is going a little bit more in depth rather than just standard text. So I think it's something that you can import. Yeah, there you go. You can import it into there. You can bring it into your game if you want to do it that way. If you want to do it the standard, original way, no problem. It's entirely your choice at the end of the day. But I think the main thing to note here, any type of UI that you bring into your scene goes in the canvas, scale the canvas correctly, and everything should look just fine from when you take it out of Unity into the build itself. Now, I know that doesn't look fantastic because it's just something I've quickly put together. But like I say, long story short, as long as you get the UI just right, you won't have any problems. So never be afraid to add things to UI and play around with your, well, like I say, it's HUD or GUI, whatever you want to refer to it as. You can always change things and make it look how you want. Next time, we're going to look at some scenes and try and understand what they are and why they are what they are. So until then, thank you very much for watching.